Oh, yeah, FanDuel friends and family, what is going on? What is happening? Happy end of week 16. We got a Monday night football slate to get after. Q&A show here on the FanDuel channel. Ryan Williams, you can find me on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. And I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Jim Sonis himself. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sonis. And Jim, we got an interesting one to break down here on the slate. Regardless of how we feel about COVID issues, regardless of how we feel about how our playoff fantasy teams did, our DFS fantasy teams did, we still have one more slate left to cover in week 16 before we get on the championship week. And that's going to be between the Miami Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints. Jim, how are you feeling today about this slate?
You said interesting. I think that's the right word because, it's not. I mean, we can say you could say hypothetically if you wanted to say it's a bad slate because, are there things I feel great about in the slate? No. But the key thing to keep in mind is it's bad for everyone. Everyone is dealing with these same issues, trying to identify players who can score points here. So although it's a tough slate, I think that is not necessarily a bad thing for us as, DFS players. There may be more inefficiency in the prop market as well, because they're guessing just as much as we are. So I think that gives us a chance to try to, win some money, try to take advantage of those unknowns, because the DFS payouts tonight are the exact same as they are for every other DFS slate. So I guess that's where I'm coming from here, Ryan. Maybe that's me trying to talk myself into stuff and feeling better about it. But it's a little hazy out there for sure.
Yeah, definitely a little hazy, and we'll definitely have a lot to dissect with the people for the next 28 or so minutes. Guys, if you're coming in on the chat, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, what have you, we appreciate you guys being here. Get your questions in. Jim and I will try to answer all of the questions as they come in. And apologies if we bounce around, but we always like to get to all the questions. We just kind of let the questions dictate on what we're talking about. So I see the chat coming in, and people are already asking about Nick Vanet, Jim, which we were talking about pre-show just leading up into the slate. And so we do have some issues on both ends, I guess, as far as the running backs go for Miami and the tight end situation for New Orleans. We do have guys that could be activated that could affect the slate. We'll talk about Nick Vanet right now. So Adam Troutman, he's on the COVID list. So is Juwan Johnson. I don't think Juwan Johnson has a chance to be active, but Adam Troutman, it sounded like, did. And so we could be getting him active. I think he's about 5,000, if I'm not mistaken, on the single game slate. And Nick Vanet's 7,000. Now, if Adam Troutman's not active, we could be looking at a situation, or not activated, we could be looking at a situation where Nick Vanet is the only tight end option. Playing with Ian Book, kind of that backup to backup connection. Absolutely love him if he's the only guy. But if Troutman is activated, it does make it a little bit murky. What are your thoughts on Nick Vanet today?
Yeah, I think that he's at least in play, DJ. So if we're talking about trying to identify players we can turn to and feel decent about on the Saints, he probably would be out there for most of the snaps. And that's more certainty than we have with a lot of guys for tonight. So I would say that it's at least an option to consider Nick Vanet here. I would also say if Adam Troutman's activated, I think that you could definitely do a lot worse than him. Not just because of the salary. The salary to me doesn't matter. It's more so because I'd expect him to have a pretty decent role. Came back last week, just 2 targets there, but before he went on IR, he was decently involved, came back really fast, honestly. It was a pretty quick turnaround. So I'd feel decent about him there if we were to get him. So I think I'd be interested there. I think the one drawback of Vanet for a slate like tonight is, like I said, we don't really need the salary savings. If you want to go at the Saints passing game, Marquez Callaway, $8,500. I think he is the preferred route to access here. Yeah. He is only $1,500 more than Vanet on a slate where I probably don't need the salary savings. So I think preferred route is there, but because Vanet will play probably every snap, if Johnson and Johnson and Troutman are not activated, then he's still in play. Preferred route is Callaway, but Vanet would at least be an option there.
Yeah, and you're looking at, so both of these defenses, which we don't play defenses on the single game slate, but that at least helps dictate the slate to us, Jim. When we were talking about this, pre-show, this over-under is 37. So Vegas is not expecting a lot of points to be scored here. So you do kind of want to look and hope for that you're getting at least touchdowns on your single game teams, your entries, to make you feel good about who you're playing. And with a guy like Nick Vanet, these are going to be two defenses that are I guess, the secondary for the Saints is dealing with some issues, but the secondary for Miami has been absolutely stellar at containing wide receiver points. So when we're looking at, throwing out a Nick Vanet out there, I do think he, is in a decent spot. And you're looking at his prop on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. He's plus 500 to score an anytime touchdown. So I do like getting to some prop action on him. I saw Grim Fan, shout out to Grim Fan, who's in the YouTube chat. He asked about Nick Vanet props. I absolutely like that. Probably not going to play around with his receiving prop at all, which is 23.5, but it is plus money to 23. That is kind of interesting to put in a same game parlay if you so choose to. But I think Nick Vanet scoring a touchdown with Ian Book, I think I could talk myself into that, especially at 5-1 odds.
Yeah, the tough part there is I wouldn't want to fire on it before we know inactives.
Right.
And we're not going to, like, the second inactives come out, they're probably going to freeze props and then like redistribute them, knowing who is active and who's not. So I would, if like Grim Fan, if you're trying to get down some action on that Vanet anytime, and I agree with Ryan, where if you're going to bet him, I would do the anytime touchdown prop. If you want to get down on that, try to make sure you are around. Honestly, right around now is when we should get news about who is active, who's being elevated. If you get word that Troutman and Johnson will not be cleared, then I would fire on Vanet right away. Personally, right. I might not get there just because I think that there's some other things I do like on the board here as far as some touchdown props go. But like if you're looking at Vanet and it seems like Grimfan and DJ both are, then I think that I would make sure you are checking Twitter right now effectively to see if we get final word that Troutman can't go. And I would take action right away before inactives come out later on.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point, Jim. And there's usually that window there. I would say, anywhere from a couple seconds to, right around 90 seconds where you're able to get onto the book and still get that back. But they're usually on top of it. So definitely want to make sure you're refreshing and get that in. Quickly, guys, shout out to everybody who's getting their questions and love the interaction that we're getting here. We'll make sure to get to your questions. I just want to bring in Grim Fan again real quick. He had a comment there about MVP with Vanet tonight. There's no need to play Vanet at captain just because the upside there. I mean, unless we're really looking at, a 9-3 score game with him possibly only catching the touchdown in this whole game. I don't think it has any merit to it. You really want to get, guys who can put up huge raw scores, multipliers at that MVP 1.5 multiplier tonight. So definitely would just be a flex play.
Yeah, I think that the good thing too is you probably don't need to get that weird at MVP tonight because I'm not sure there is like a definite, like Kamara is probably the chalk option for MVP, but I don't think it'll be like a Lamar Jackson situation where he's 60% rostered in the MVP slot specifically. So I think you'll be able to kind of just play things however you want here. Maybe give thought to fading Kamara there, but I don't think we need to get too wacky with the MVP slot for tonight.
Yeah, so that's a fun one, Jim, and I do want to touch on Alvin Kamara next as we're kind of talking about the Saints first, and then guys, we'll get into Miami here about the halfway mark to make sure that we cover both sides for you guys. But wanted to bring in Aaron Rasmus, on YouTube. Wouldn't be a holiday show as we're just fresh off the holidays here without getting a shout out there. So happy holidays to you, Jim, from snowy Minnesota. Guys, keeping tabs on you. So it's not
just snowy; it's also ice. I tried to walk outside this morning and I almost tanked. So like you would have had a replacement. I mean, I don't know if Justin's around, but like I was close to hitting the IR myself because there's also ice out there. And I was not ready for that this morning.
We would have done a solo dolo Kid Cudi version of it. I would have been doing it all, jack of all trades as we are here at FanDuel. So love that Jim could make it on. Jim, so Alvin Kamara, I want to go down to in the YouTube chat. We got Go Start coming in. He's asking about over under 30 fantasy points for Kamara. So we've seen Kamara have big games around the holidays. Obviously, Christmas is 2 days removed now, but he had that big Christmas game last year where he put up 6 touchdowns, I believe that it was. And now he finds himself here in a matchup where this, like I said, we got a backup a backup to the backup quarterback who's starting for Ian Book for the Saints. Wide receivers are going to have a tough go in this matchup. I feel like even with Nick Vanet, as much as I love him, I still think that, really looking at a low floor or lowish floor, safe floor play if he scores a touchdown there. But with Alvin Kamara, this guy has to be the guy. I think we talked about it, in single game entry stuff, entries that are 1,000 or less. I'm looking at playing Alvin Kamara at MVP. I'll just get different elsewhere. You're looking at the upside that this guy has, and really what we're looking at with the defense here, to start the year, they were pretty strong. I'm kind of looking at the numbers here as I go, but they allowed 9 running back touchdowns, it looks like, in their first 7 games. And then they have not allowed any over the last 7, but their opponents, Jim, have been teams like Buffalo, Houston, Baltimore, the Jets, Carolina, Giants, Jets again. So you're looking at, them not having played a stud like Alvin Kamara. Is there any merit to not playing Kamara in an ugly game like this at MVP?
Yes, I think that your baseline of Kamara at MVP is correct. Like, he probably should be the number one guy. I think if you were looking for a reason to deviate, you can look at what he's done in games where Mark Ingram has been there, and it's not a big sample because Ingram obviously was with the Texans initially, and then came over, and then Kamara missed some time, Ingram missed some time as well. So it's not a big sample. But last week, with both these guys being active, Kamara 11 carries, 6 targets, 31 yards from scrimmage in that game. The previous game, where it was Kamara with Ingram, was all the way back in week 9. In that game, 104 yards from scrimmage. That's not too bad. In week 8, it was 76 yards from scrimmage. So it's a 3-game sample of the two of them playing together. And in those 3 games, he's at 76, 104, and 31. Basically means he's pretty volatile. And volatility is not bad because if you get the 104 yards in scrimmage, you're going to feel pretty good in a game that's probably going to be as low scoring as this one. But you can also get the bottom end of that. So I think that if I'm looking at a single entry slate where I am trying to find ways to be different without being stupid, I would go elsewhere. Maybe it's Jalen Waddle at MVP. Maybe it's Tua Tagovailoa at MVP. I think that might be the way I'd play things there in order to take advantage of the fact that Kamara, when Ingram is healthy, is not quite the same dominant, doesn't get the same dominant workload he does when Ingram is not there.
No, excellent. And I do think that Miami kind of dictates how this game goes in general, which, there's only 2 teams, Ryan. That seems like a duh statement to make. But really, when we're looking at a game that is just this low scoring, like the only way that we kind of get any type of explosive game or any game that we feel confident in multiple pieces is if Miami's able to do what they want to do on offense. If Sean Payton and Dennis Allen are not able to contain them, because if they are, they're just going to run Kamara and Ingram, keep the ball out of Book's hands and just call it a day, let their defense lean back. So I do think it will be interesting when we break down Miami. Real quick, I wanted to talk about the receivers, ancillary pieces outside of Ian Book, which we could talk about Ian Book. This guy, he's making his first NFL start. The rushing props, Jim, if you have the FanDuel, thank you, the FanDuel Sportsbook up, and you're looking at his rushing props, I found it incredible. This guy, I think he averaged like 500 rushing yards when he was at Notre Dame in his final 2 seasons. So it does have some upside there. But anytime touchdown score, he's plus 290. He's the 5th, has the 5th shortest odds to score a touchdown on the any game slate. So that led me to his rushing props. His rushing prop for tonight is 32.5. So, Vegas is expecting him to be able to lean on his legs in this game. So he makes for an interesting play to kind of talk about. And then I did want to ask about the ancillary pieces. I saw DJ coming in the chat asking about Lil Jordan Humphrey. We got Marquez Callaway that we can talk about. Not sure about Traquan Smith's status. I know he was questionable. He could also be active in this game, but we're not going to have Deante Harris, who's been, kind of a stud in his own right for what the team considers him as. How do you feel about these ancillary pieces and or the quarterback in general for New Orleans?
Yeah, so Ian Book, he's got some speed to him, a little bit. I think he ran like a 4.7 40-ish at his pro day last year. Of course, there was no combine. And he did run a bit in college, as you alluded to. So he can run a bit. And if you're looking at the Saints offense trying to transition quickly from Taysom Hill to Ian Book, because they didn't have a ton of warning, ton of heads up this is going to happen, they kind of have to make do on the fly. I can see why we'd see some rushing appeal in Ian Book. Let's see what the projections have over here. They've got him at 11.8 FanDuel points. That's enough to be in play for the single game slate for sure. I think that the market's adjusted really fast on book. I think he opened at like 22 yards rushing and shot up. So clearly smart people are putting a lot of money on the over on that rushing yardage prop. The anytime touchdown number too short for me to get there. So I think from a betting perspective, I'm stay away from the book rushing props. From a DFS perspective, though, I think that does help him be in play for tonight at $12,000. Obviously, his quarterback's like he should be in play. But the question is, do I prioritize him above Jalen Waddle? Do I prioritize him above Tua Tagovailoa? And it's hard for me to say yes there, because I have decently high expectations for Waddle specifically. So I'm okay with book and we'll use him. But I also think that if I have him in less than half my lineups, that's not going to be a massive, massive surprise to me, just because I want to focus the majority of my salary allocation more so on guys like Tua and Waddle than on book.
Yeah, no, that's a great point there. And I do have some interest in Ian Book. I usually play in the 3 max to 5 max tournament, so I'm looking to get a little bit different there. And I've made a team with Ian Book at MVP. If he does happen to run one in, and maybe Kamara does score, but then the other touchdown is a passing touchdown, to him, then we could see the quarterback be at MVP being optimal. And that $12K price tag is kind of nice. And I just don't know how many people are going to get behind him, especially at the MVP multiplier spot. So that could be very interesting to play.
Yeah. And I think that if they do like Ian Book, that'll probably more so increase their interest in Kamara. So if they like Book, they'll use him in the flex spot with Kamara at MVP, whereas you could just flip them or exclude Kamara entirely maybe and do it that way instead. So I think that if you're going to use Book, I think giving thought to him at MVP is a smart way to play things.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this, Jim, where, let's just say, I think we can play the slate out in most tournaments here. Alvin Kamara is going to be 88% or higher owned at the flex spot. In a lineup. And then you're probably looking at MVP. He's probably more than 50% at MVP, depending on what kind of tournament you're in. So by just fading him in general, we talked about this with guys like Lamar, other guy, a Tom Brady slate, some guys where people just don't want to miss out on those points if it does disappoint. And this Vegas total is telling us that not a lot of points are going to be scored here. If some weird stuff happens, you have a team without Kamara, that could, pay off more often than not. So an interesting one to get to there. Bringing in DJ here, who's coming in on Facebook. He says that Ian Book was the Josh Allen of Notre Dame. I thought that was funny.
Does he mean that as in like college Josh Allen? Because that could,
I would imagine.
I think that's pretty accurate based on my recollection of Ian Book. I think it was college Josh Allen, not superstar freak Josh Allen.
Right. The Josh Allen that just handled business against the Patriots in that revenge game. You love to see that in Foxborough. Jim, I want to get over to the Miami side, but before I do, earlier on, like one of the first comments we had was Mark Capozio coming in on Facebook. Didn't want to not shout him out. Mark, you might not be watching again, but we do like to shout out everybody here on the FanDuel Q&A on Mondays. So wanted to make sure that we got that in. We appreciate you watching along with us, Mark. I'm going to go down to Dark Tyrant 458, who's coming in, favorite of the FanDuel channel, FanDuel community. We appreciate you coming in, asking about Duke Johnson. Exploded last game, but Gaskin had COVID. He was coming back off of the COVID list, did not practice a majority of that week, and that could have led to Duke Johnson starting the game and then putting up his best career game and however many seasons he's already been in the league. So that was fun. Let's talk about this Miami side. The running back situation is a little bit murky because we do have Philip Lindsay who signed with him. He has not been activated, but that's because we haven't seen the actives or inactives list, but he could be here. We could also have Malcolm Brown coming back into the mix. So we could potentially have them choosing from 5 running backs in Myles Gaskin, Duke Johnson, Malcolm Brown, Salvin Ahmed, and Philip Lindsay to be active for this game today. Now, the matchup does not lead itself to being a good one for running back. So if I were to play any guy in that backfield, I think it would be Myles Gaskin, because the one thing that he's been able to do in his career with Miami is catch passes out of the backfield. They like using him in that role. Duke Johnson, we also know, is a really apt pass catcher. He was great in Houston when he was there. But what are your thoughts on the running back situation, Jim, as we try to dissect this before the inactive list comes out?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a mess. So I think, again, it's kind of similar to the discussion on Ian Book of, do I want to use them, or do I want to, like, they are close enough to Waddle where it is kind of like a 1-for-1 type thing. And I just rather go with Waddle because I know he'll play and I feel pretty good about his expectation. I think that if they're looking for one, I might go Duke Johnson, just because, I don't know, this is like a vibes thing, not like his vibes, but the coaching staff gave off vibes that they were not into Myles Gaskin, in the sense that they signed Phillip Lindsay, they signed Duke Johnson, the practice squad. That says to me they were not super pleased with the way things were going. Now, I do think that, as Dark Tyrant was talking about, part of the reason Gaskin's usage last week was so bad was because he hadn't practiced this week. Brian Flores said on Friday, hey, we might go with the guys who have practiced with us. And that's what he did. So we could see Gaskin's role increase here. But I also think that with Johnson playing well, there's a shot it doesn't increase. So if I were to go with one running back, I would go with Duke Johnson. I'm going to use Duke. I think that there is reason to use Gaskin as well. But I think that, honestly, if I've got one lineup, I'm probably just skipping over all of them. Their salaries are high enough where I can actually do that. And I think that's the way I go. If I were choosing one, I would go Johnson, just because I think he played well enough to earn an extra look in this offense.
No, that's a great point, Jim, and you hit it on the head. The writing was on the wall last week for all the coach speak, or don't listen to coach speak talk that we see in the fantasy community. That was one time where it did bear some merit there, as they were kind of talking about utilizing Duke Johnson in a significant role, and lo and behold, he was the starter of the game last week. So that was fun. FanDuel doing a great job of pricing these guys, I think, by putting them both at 11K, having to make a choice between the two of them has some merit. I think also maybe there is some merit to playing both. If Tua, really needs to get the ball out quickly, and both of them are going to be used in the pass catching game, the other running backs really have not been utilized in that regard. So maybe some merit if you're playing, more than a handful of teams. If you're 150 max, or even in a 20 max situation, getting teams that have both of them on it, as well as both of the Saints running backs on it, I think does have some merit there.
Yeah, the Saints thing I was going to bring up too. I think that's really smart, because like, we talk about making assumptions and playing the game out in your head. If the Saints win this game, they're probably going to run a lot, and I think that could lead to 15 carries, 6 targets for Alvin Kamara. And it could be like 12 carries for Mark Ingram, 12 carries, 3 targets, something like that. And if they both get those specific, like, that's kind of outlandish. It's a lot of work, but if they get that, they'll probably both be in the lineup. So I think the Kamara Ingram lineup, for me, if you assume the Saints win this game, very, very interesting.
Yes, no, that has some merit too, and especially if we get Mark Ingram red zone role there, that'll be fun to get after. It has been a tough defense to run against, Jim, as I'm looking at New Orleans here, ranked number 1 in rush DVOA. So that, been hard to run on them. But Demario Davis and Malcolm Jenkins, I know Malcolm Jenkins plays safety, but still, you got a lot of 2 defensive key guys who are going to be out for the New Orleans Saints this week, which should, make things interesting, I guess, to a certain extent when we're talking about these guys. And I guess the 2 guys that I wanted to make sure we touch on outside of Tua, because I do want to get your thoughts on Tua and how we feel about him today. We had a question earlier on about Devonta Parker. This was from Ryan McFarland on Facebook, asking about Devonta Parker or Waddle for captain. Now, Devonta Parker, for all intents and purposes, I still think that he has a tough matchup there playing on the outside with the way that this Dennis Allen defense likes to play things. But with Waddle, when we're looking at the slot here, this could be interesting. Also interesting for Mike Gesicki as well, who, they're tough against tight ends, but without Malcolm Jenkins being there and Demario Davis, like two good guys in coverage across the middle, that could also lead to some more production for Mike Gesicki as well. And he kind of plays more of a wide receiver role as it is anyway. What are your thoughts about the Miami pass catchers at all, Jim? Because I know you did mention Waddle at captain a couple of times. Is that the one guy you would go for Miami, or are there other pieces you can trust?
Yeah, I kind of want to copy and paste everything you said as being my answer for the Dolphins pass catchers. I think that was spot on. You talking about Gesicki with the guys who are not there for the Saints. I think that's super smart. I tend to love Devonta Parker. It's harder to love him in this matchup. So that's why I'm so focused on Waddle, because again, what part of the field does he win in? It's over the middle, stuff like that, a short area of field. And that's where Demario Davis is. That's where Malcolm Jenkins is. And so I think those two guys are the ones who benefit most from those absences. And if you look at the 3 games, it's a 3-game sample where Parker, Waddle, and Tua have all been healthy at the same time. I'll just do this super clunkily on the stream because why not? It's a 3-game sample with all of them active at the same time. In those 3 games, Jalen Waddle's target share is 28%, Devonta Parker 22%, Gesicki is 16%. So Gesicki didn't play a lot in week 1. So it is kind of a tainted sample for him, but I think that does show that Waddle is going to get a lot of work, probably going to get some high leverage work because he's gotten a good amount of deep targets. He's gotten a lot of work inside the red zone as well. That to me says he has the path to be the highest scoring guy in the slate. So if I am trying to be a bit different, I think I want to do so via Jalen Waddle, because I think people will go with the quarterbacks or Kamara as their MVP. Probably not a lot of people going with Waddle. So to me, I think that he stands out. I think that he is a really fun option. Totally okay with Parker. I need him in some season-long spots tonight, so would love for him to do well. But I think that between him and Gesicki, it's pretty tough. I'm curious who you prefer between the two. Because I'm torn, so I'm going to steal your answer here again, if that's okay.
No, that's fair. I think that Waddle is a guy that I would get to. I just wanted to bring up Gesicki just in the point of, like, if you're making teams that have Tua exposure to them or Tua MVP, you want to take 2 pass catchers. I would probably lean Waddle and Gesicki both over Devonta Parker. I mean, Devonta Parker, he's done decent with Tua without Waddle in the lineup. But then when you're looking at Waddle being there, I mean, Waddle, he has games we're looking at, 3-4 games I'm looking at here with 8 or more targets. Devonta Parker with Tua only has 1 game with 8 or more targets, and only 1 game where he's found pay dirt. So, even with the matchup aside, still tough to trust and get after him there. But he does have some merit in the flex. I guess I would be more apt. I probably wouldn't play Gesicki at MVP too, but I love getting to Waddle MVP because he could get all the work there. And if the Saints are going up big, I could see them leaning on Waddle to help them get out of it. Jim, as we get down here, I wanted to make sure we touch on the sports book, just if people had some betting questions to get after to today. But I did want to ask about, we won't have Albert Wilson for the Miami Dolphins. So that probably means that we get some form of Isaiah Ford or Mac Hollins or maybe even Preston Williams seeing more of a share. Do you have a lean on who that would be particularly?
Every time I use Mike Gesicki, Mac Hollins catches a touchdown. Like, that's a rule.
Okay.
So like, I looked and he's plus 950. I don't hate it. I haven't, acted on that, but like, I don't hate it just because like, that's kind of what he does is he scores touchdowns. So, I think that he's at least worth a look, and he'd be the guy who interests me most just because he tilts me to no end. Because again, I think he wears 88. Gesicki wears 86. They look the exact same from like a far angle, especially like in September when like Gesicki's like a little like, he's been in the sun a little bit, but like, it's tough. So I think Mac Hollins, just because like those non-Gesicki touchdowns stick out in my mind so much, I feel like he'd be the guy there.
Yeah, I've seen him, in the few times that I've seen the Miami Dolphins, play on Sunday on my Red Zone channel coming on. Mac Hollins, I'm always looking, okay, where's Gesicki? Where's Waddle? Right. Oh no, that's Mike. That's Mac Hollins there catching a touchdown. So that's fun. I also wanted to bring in Dark Tyrant back again from the YouTube channel saying that Waddle and Tua spent Christmas together. I didn't mean to be rude there. I was actually trying to confirm this on Twitter just to see if we could get some stuff there. I do know that they had a good rapport as well in the offseason leading into the season, and it's paid off. It's paid off dividends. Waddle's looking like a great future asset for them to have. So love what Miami's doing. Now, we can't even bury the lead on this whole game, Jim, which has a ton of implications as far as playoffs go, the Saints. So the Saints are right now sitting at the 7th seed. And I believe if the Saints and the 49ers and whoever that NFC team, I'm going to blank now, but there's another NFC team there. If all 3 teams went out, the Saints actually would miss the play. Actually, I think they're higher than the 7th seed. It's the 49ers and somebody else. The Saints would actually be the ones to miss out, which is kind of crazy, I think. That's wild. Is how I saw. Or the 49ers would be the one to miss out.
So they're in, but if they win out, they could still miss the playoffs.
Correct. Yeah. I actually think it was the 49ers because the 49ers have a better record. But I
honestly,
if playoff implications there.
If the choice is, do I get to watch Deebo Samuel in the playoffs or Ian Book or like Taysom Hill in the playoffs, I'm going to take Deebo Samuel. So that's fair enough. I'll take that.
Absolutely. And then we have the Dolphins, who have been on just an incredible pace right now, starting 1-7, have not lost a game yet. They actually are favored in this game to win on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I was just bringing it back up here. 3 is what it is now on the road going into New Orleans. Do you have a lean on either team?
So I have ignored this market for the past 5 days because I had the Dolphins plus 140 before the Taysom Hill news broke. Their money line. So I have that sitting. I'm not going to touch anything in addition to it. I'm just going to let it ride, see what happens, and be okay with the result. If I were looking at this and had not bet it previously, I think it'd still be a stay away for me just because I think 3 is a pretty efficient line. I think that the Saints defense is going to play well enough to keep them in this game, regardless of what happens to their offense. So that's why I can't be like, oh yeah, just go get Miami -3 now. But also I don't really want to take the Saints +3 because I do think that Miami in each team's current state is probably the better team. So I can see both sides here, so I'm going to stick with what I have and just let that Dolphins money line ride. But if I were looking at it now and had not bet it, I think I would stay away personally.
Love that. Yeah, I would. I have no lean whatsoever on this game. It should be an interesting one, but it does. These are the type of games where it does make me. It's hard to bet against New Orleans at home, regardless of who's starting. They're getting Sean Payton back, as you alluded to, and they'll find a way. They'll find a way with Ian Book and the rookie to spoil the Miami Dolphins playoff chances and hopes and dreams and have that be fun.
If anyone can make it work with Ian Book, it's Sean Payton. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The Taysom Hill whisper to a certain extent. Guys, just real quickly on the FanDuel Sportsbook, I wanted to talk about a boost, but real quickly, Vanet, if he is the only tight end who's active, if we don't get Troutman, we don't get Johnson, his reception prop right now is plus money at 2.5. I would get behind that. It kind of feels a little bit ugly when you think about Vanet and what his, reception equity would be, if we played this game out multiple times, but no other tight end to compete with. He'll be on the field, 3 receptions. I'm fine getting behind that. That's one that you would have to take outside of a same game parlay. Ton of action to get on the same game parlay, guys. Make sure you're getting after those. And then we also have some boosts around this game as well. We got the Dolphins plus 3.5 and the under of 44.5 points at plus 100. So, you get your money doubled up there. But also we got the Santa Barkley boost. Alvin Kamara to have 50 rushing yards and Jalen Waddle to have 50 receiving yards plus 200, 2-1. I've already bet it, Jim. So
I would too.
I will get behind that for the people and the fans. Jim, do you have any last words about this game before we sign off today?
Yeah, as much as I hate it, Ryan, I do think that there's value in the Gesicki touchdown prop at plus 360, which guarantees Mac Hollins will score. So by me saying this, I've just locked in Mac Hollins plus 950. But I do think that if I'm ignoring my past burnings, I think Gesicki plus 360 is a pretty good bet right now.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm gonna see what the boost. I said after yesterday, I missed the 4-figure bet with Ezekiel Elliott not getting 51.5 yards. So I said I
Oh
wouldn't bet
no!
a
So
same
Washington
game
is now
parlay.
your least favorite team for not keeping that game competitive. Then
Yeah, it's hard to blame Washington. I'm not even going to blame them. It's always Dallas's fault,
that's true.
regardless.
That's true.
It's always Dallas's fault.
Fair
So
enough.
it was my fault for believing in Dallas in that way. But yeah, had some fun action going last night, guys. We hope that you have some fun action going on Monday night tonight, and whether you're in the playoffs or you want to get some money back on some of the bets here on the FanDuel Sportsbook, or you want to hit big on the FanDuel single game slate, guys, plenty of money to be had. We hope that you enjoy it. Week 16, this is it. This is going to bookmark the week 16. We got week 17 next week for you guys. Monday Night Football. This will be fun. We'll be ringing in the new year on January 3rd with you guys, 2022. I can't believe it. Can't believe it's already here, Jim. It's crazy. But we hope you guys have a fun one, guys. Happy holidays to you and yours. Thanks for tuning into the FanDuel channel. Catch us next time on the Monday Q&A show. But until then, signing off for Jim Sonis. You can find him on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find me, Ryan Williams, at Ryan Alexander _W. We'll see you next time. Good luck. Peace.